Hello friends, a lot has happened between Pakistan and India in the last 24 hours. The conflict which has started on 6th of May midnight due to the Operation Sindoor, which was in reaction to the terror attack carried on by Pakistani proxies in the Pahalgam within Jammu and Kashmir. Let's look at this news article to understand it better. Union Home Ministry has asked the states and UTs to activate emergency powers under the civil defense rules. Well, does that mean that a national emergency is being imposed? The answer is no. National emergency is quite different from the emergency provisions under the civil defense rules. Let's understand this in detail. Emergency powers under the civil defense rules are derived from the Civil Defense Act of 1968 and the rules are mentioned in the civil defense rules. These rules mostly empower the central as well as the state government to take swift actions in the interest of national security, especially during the times of war and disasters. Now let us look at the provisions in detail. First of all, what are the emergency powers under the civil defense rules? Requisition of property and services. Requisition of property means that the government can acquire land, buildings, vehicles for civil defense rules. When it comes to services, it means that government can direct any person to perform civil defense duties. And then government can also control the lights and camouflage, and it can also impose blackouts, which you can see right now in the states of Rajasthan and parts of Gujarat and most of Punjab as well. Thirdly, evacuation orders. Government can issue mandatory evacuation of specific areas for the civilian safety. For example, government has ordered to shut down the schools in Rajasthan and it has imposed strict security measures in key areas within Gujarat, keeping in mind the civilian safety. Fourthly, restriction on movement. Government can impose curfews and movement controls and also restrict access to sensitive zones. Well, at the same time, it can also censor certain communication controls, mostly to prevent fake news and propaganda material in this age of social media to be propagated and which can be used by the enemy nations to misguide the people of India. And finally, training and deployment. It can enroll citizens into civil defense corps and mandate participation in drills or emergency duties. Well, the participation of drills is done on the 7th of May under Operation Abhyas, wherein people were asked to participate in drills which were aimed to prepare them for aerial strikes and for human rescue as well as for the blackouts. And after that, government also can do demolition of certain structures, and then it can also control prices and the supply of essential goods to prevent hoarding or black marketing in times of emergencies. And finally, punishment for non-compliance. Non-compliance of these can lead to imprisonment up to these many years and it can attract fine as well under this Civil Defense Act. Well, what is the purpose of civil defense emergency powers? Well, mostly as you just heard that these are meant for the protection of life and property, maintaining public order and supporting military efforts during the external threats which we are facing right now when it comes to Pakistan. And finally, ensuring quick mobilization of national resources. Now let us look at the differences between these civil defense rules and national emergency. In civil defense rules, the legal authority is the Civil Defense Act of 1968, whereas the source of the provision of national emergency comes from the Constitution of India under the Article 352. What is the scope? Well, operational and localized when it comes to civil defense rules. But when it comes to national emergency, since it is constitutional, the effect is nationwide. Similarly, the focus is on civilian safety and infrastructure and logistics. And when it comes to national emergency, the focus is on national governance and constitutional authority. Similarly, you can see that the domain of the civil defense rules is narrower when it comes to the application, and when compared to national emergency, it is definitely narrower and the domain of national emergency is broader. Now, what are certain guidelines that government has issued in the last 24 hours? Well, the Ministry of Defense has requested all media channels, digital platforms and individuals to refrain from live coverage of real-time reporting of defense operations and movement of security forces. You all must be wondering, why did government issue such a notification? Well, the reason is simple. If you must be aware of the happenings of the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks, it was because of the media that lot of critical information with respect to the movement of forces was compromised and was made available unintentionally to the terrorists, which was ultimately used by the terrorists to harm the security forces. So this time, learning from the experience, Government of India is requesting and even ordering certain media outlets and news channels to control the kind of information that is being generated, that is being covered in the live coverage, to prevent security forces' positions from being compromised. Let us look at this news article. All shops, restaurants in Chandigarh to be closed by 7 p.m. These are certain updates when it comes to Operation Sindoor in the last 24 hours. As of now, has resulted in over 100 flights being cancelled from Delhi airport today so far. Now, what has been the attitude of United States in all of this? The attitude of United States has definitely shifted when it comes to Pakistan. Before the Kargil war, the US approached Pakistan primarily through the lens of non-proliferation and regional stability. But after the 1971 Kargil war, its stance shifted towards neutrality and even sometimes criticism of Pakistan's action in the Kargil conflict. Now let us look at what has actually happened in the Kargil war briefly to understand this issue deeper. Kargil war took place between India and Pakistan, as you know, in the year of 1999 in the Jammu and Kashmir's Kargil sector, after the Pakistani troops and militants infiltrated Indian territory and were attacking the military forces of India. Pakistan's objective here was to seize strategic peaks and to cut off Leh-Srinagar highway and thus altering the LOC. India's response through Operation Vijay was simple. India launched Operation Vijay and mobilized Army and Air Force through Operation Safed Sagar to recapture the heights. What was the outcome of all of this? In July 1999, Indian forces successfully pushed back the intruders, and this day is now commemorated as the Kargil Vijay Divas. 527 Indian soldiers were unfortunately martyred, and the conflict exposed Pakistan's role and severely strained bilateral relations. What is the role of US in the Kargil war? Well, it played the role of neutrality. Initially, it took a neutral stance, but then it asked both the nuclear-armed countries to practice restraint and recognition of Pakistan's aggression. With mounting evidence, US finally acknowledged the regular Pakistani troops that had been violating the LOC. The Clinton-Sharif meeting that happened in Washington, D.C. is where Clinton firmly ordered PM Nawaz Sharif for Pakistani withdrawal. Diplomatic pressure mounted on Pakistan, and it helped prevent further wider conflict and to prevent nuclear escalation. The impact on global perception. This episode strengthened US-India ties in the backdrop of US-Russia being allies, wherein USA was skeptical to have ties with India. But after this episode, India-US ties were strengthened. As you can see in this news article, how the Kargil war turned US into an Indian ally. And the situation today, as we speak, after the Operation Sindoor, US Vice President J.D. Vance says that USA will not intervene in India-Pakistan dispute as it is none of their business. This is a key significant switch from what USA used to do a couple of decades ago. And now finally, to the question that many people have in their minds today. Is UPSC Prelims 2025 going to be postponed? Well, as you can see in this news article, threat of war has shattered our dreams, say UPSC aspirants from Kashmir in the midst of Indo-Pak tensions. Well, has UPSC communicated any such thing? The answer is no. There has been no official communication from UPSC so far. In fact, it has released important instructions for the PWBD candidates requesting scribe change as of today. So please stay away from fake news and rumors and do not believe in half-baked information being circulated in Instagram and Telegram groups, and kindly wait for the official communication from UPSC and prepare well for the exam. Depending on how this situation unfolds between India and Pakistan, government will most likely clarify upon whether or not UPSC prelims will be conducted on time or not. Because It goes without saying that the concerns are not just limited to UPSC prelims. It is also related to the NTA, which is going to conduct the CUET exam soon from May 13th onwards, and a large number of students from the bordering states of Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab and Rajasthan are expected to appear for the same. This is the whole update as of now regarding this issue. And now coming to the question of the day. Which of the following is not an emergency power granted under the Civil Defence Rules of 1968? These are the 4 options. Select the right option and mention it in the comments. Thank you, take care and Jai Hind. Abhyas IAS Super 30 batch starting from June 15th. Take the skill test and join us in clearing your civils in your first attempt itself.